Welcome to today's interview. We have the pleasure of sitting down with sweet Jenn. She is a beautiful friend of mine, a remarkable individual who has transitioned from a successful career as a registered nurse to becoming an advocate for holistic health and detoxification. Today, we will delve into the fascinating world of detox, exploring the ways in which our guest has detoxed both her body and her home. With extensive experience in the medical field, our guest recognized the importance of a holistic approach to health and wellness. Determined to explore alternative methods, she embarked on a personal journey towards detox, discovering the profound impact it can have on overall well-being. Not only did she focus on detoxing her own body, but she also recognized the significance of detoxing her living environment. This ensures a toxin-free space for optimal health. During our conversation today, Jenn and I will explore the various detox methods she has implemented, the challenges she encountered along the way, and the remarkable benefits she has experienced. We will delve into the science behind detox, uncovering the interconnectedness between our body and our living environment. Jenn will also provide valuable insights into how detox can positively influence our physical, mental, and emotional health. So please join us and welcome my beautiful friend Jenn to the stage today. What's up, sis?
Hello. I'm so glad to be here with you, Karen. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yay. I love it. I love you and I can just sit and talk for hours and hours. And so let's put it so other people can actually get some benefit from it too, right?
Right.
I love it. Okay. All right. So we're just jumping right in today. So I would love for you to give our viewers today a little bit of just your background, your story, like how in the world did all of this start appearing in your life, and how did things show up for you, and how did you start this journey?
Yeah, it is a way back story,
Right.
For over 20 years. My background is oncology. I worked on oncology for 14 years in a busy oncology unit. And I'd say probably if you're asking that question, that's probably where it sort of all began. There are some other pieces to the puzzle, but I think like it's worth mentioning, right? And I know that you are familiar with that area as well.
Yes,
so I think that's kind of where it started. I remember I was thinking about this the other day. I remember having some patients, not every patient, but some patients coming in to the hospital and they would mention, hey, we're trying this holistic treatment or whatever. And I say, because, it's kind of woo-woo. And especially back then, because it's been so many years, but I remember thinking, right, they need to just stick to their protocol.
Right? This is what we're taught. This is what we do.
Yeah, they need to stick to their protocol. And so, but, I began like through that journey, like asking certain questions, like, why are we doing this? Why is this happening? Why are they not getting better? Why, asking all those questions. And at the time, I was also dealing with a lot of health issues myself. So that's kind of like where it began. The questions started through, and I was like, what's going on here? Why is it not like making sense to me anymore?
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So then what actually started showing up in your life? Where, how did this happen?
So I have dealt with stomach issues, gut issues for a long time. I can remember being little and dealing with those kind of issues, and they would just like come and go and come and go. But back then, probably I would say in my young 30s, I'm in my young 40s now, maybe.
Yes, we'll always say that. Yes.
Yeah. So young 30s, maybe I started dealing with it becoming more frequent, dealing with so many stomach issues that I began to like not be able to eat the same way. I was really having to carry Tums in my purse and just nausea all the time, crackers, which we'll talk about that later. Like I just was making the problem worse, but I just was going and working and thriving in this stress-induced environment. And I just wasn't slowing down enough to even consider what the issue was.
Right. Yeah. That you were maybe adding to your own stress.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Okay. So then Was there from that point? So obviously lots of gut issues, lots of things happening at that point.
Yeah.
When did you say, okay, enough is enough? Something has to change.
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, Karen, I don't think I really got to that point. I think God pushed me to that point.
Yeah.
I am the personality that will just go and go and go, and I will make it work and make it work and make it work. And I think, God knows that about me. He created me. So, he slowed me way down. And what I mean by that is I had some emergency situations with my health that required assistance. And that's when I was like, okay, something has to change. And so some emergency surgery things that happened, and I'm happy to go into that just a little bit if you'd like me to, but
Yeah, please. I'd love for everybody to know exactly what you had.
yeah. So I ended up having gallbladder issues, which everybody would go, okay, well, we're pretty common with that. We deal with that, right?
Sure.
I would beg the question that we don't necessarily need to get to that point. I think our gallbladder is necessary, regardless of what your doctor may tell you.
Right.
Of course, do your own research. This is not medical advice, but I would tell you, yes, your gallbladder is necessary. You actually need that to emulsify and digest your food. When your gallbladder gets bogged down, there's a reason. And I was perpetuating the problem.
Sure.
And I was not educated enough at that point to say, slow down. We don't need to do this surgery, although it had gotten to a point of something needed to be done.
Sure.
But maybe we could just slow down and take a minute, take a breath, and like evaluate the situation. And maybe there was a chance for my gallbladder to be saved, right? So that's where we were. We were in a situation where the gallbladder needed to come out, and that just catapulted me into other issues.
Sure.
With digestion, which I still suffer with today. So
yeah, no, those are awful, right? Like you said, sometimes it's affecting the fact that you can't go out to eat, or if you go out to eat, you better go right home. Like, so many, and then just the uncomfortableness of always having stomach issues and problems. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. True. That's never fun. Okay. So then let's talk about, how did you dive into this? Like, how did you start? Did you start researching things? Did you start like listening to some other people besides, all of those doctors telling you that it has to be one certain way? How did that happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, back in the day, there wasn't, really the internet was sort of kind of becoming new. It wasn't really a thing like it is now, believe it or not.
Right.
So yeah, no, I think God was my guide. I started just slowing down and listening to my body, which I think is key for everybody here to like, if you have anything to take away, that's my biggest takeaway for you.
Right.
Slow down, take a deep breath, and start listening to your body. Scanning your body. I know that people are like, what do you mean? Your body will tell you what's going on if you just listen.
Absolutely.
And I know, Karen, you're a huge believer of that. And it took me a while to slow down enough to listen. So really, God was my guide. In the beginning, and yes, there was a lot of reading and researching that went on, books, and I did listen to some physicians, but if it did not align with what the journey that I was going on, I would continue to research and read. And no longer was I going to just take a medication just because you tell me to take a medication. I'm now becoming the CEO of my health, is what was happening in my mid 30s. And so that's uncomfortable for a lot of physicians, y'all, just by the way, but don't
really
be afraid to ask the questions, and don't be afraid to sit in a room and be strong enough to ask those questions. And if you feel like somebody who is in your care, or someone is your caretaker, someone that you feel is a trusted medical professional, and you feel gaslit by them, is that the right word?
Yeah. Yep, it is.
Leave the room. Find a different
it's okay to, right? And I think there's a, like, that's a big message that I'm not sure that both of us are nurses, right? We both have this, this background of being in the medical field. And I think people who are not in the medical field maybe just assume, okay, well, let's trust them because they're a doctor. They're supposed to know, right? And I'm not by any means putting down anybody in the health field, right? Like doctors, they spend their time, they do their stuff, but they are also taught certain things. And so you absolutely have to be able to have your wits about yourself and like really evaluate what they're telling you. Like, does this sound correct to me? Like, no, you might not know all the answers, right? You're not going to know what drugs do what and how they work in your body. However, just should I be taking a drug, or should I be finding a different way to eat or a different thing to drink, or should I be eliminating other things out of my life instead of adding things to it, right?
Yeah.
And obviously everybody, this is just two girls sitting here talking about our experience. I'm not telling you not to take the drugs, right? We are not telling you not to do what your doctors tell you to do. We are just simply saying, hey, pay attention and ask questions, right?
Ask questions, be curious, and don't be afraid to leave the room. I coach people about this all the time, and I'm sure that you do too, having gone through what you've gone through, but we just have to be in charge of our health. And if it doesn't align, we need to be okay with saying no. And if that bothers somebody that's in that profession, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just going to bother them.
It's okay. I was listening to Jessie Lee had a podcast the other day, and she said, she was like, I've had 8 oncologists. 8.
And I love that.
Yes. And I'm like, you go, girl. Yeah. Because it is okay if you don't align with the first one. Go try again. Right. And then try again. And if it takes 8, it takes 8. If it takes 10, it takes 10. But make sure that you are right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, okay. All right. Sorry. I kind of went off on a tangent there. My bad.
No, it's okay. I can talk about that.
Okay. So at this point, you have started researching things. You've started looking into knowing that there can be a different way to do life, really.
Right.
And how you take care of yourself, how you take care of your home. So what was the first thing you did? Like what really was like, okay, this needs to be taken care of?
The first thing was my nutrition. I mean, I don't know that necessarily should be everybody's first thing. That's just where I started. And I would tell everybody, you can't, you can look at this and you can think, oh gosh, no, it's too big, like to detox my environment, my body, my whatever it is for you, but just bite-sized, start small. It does not have to be huge, and you don't have to do everything right away. So for me, what I began doing was just changing the way I ate, just small things. So instead of buying, fake processed butter, I started buying real butter. Instead of buying this, I started buying this. So, and that's what I tell people too that ask me, I'm like, listen, you don't need to throw away your whole pantry. You don't need to do that. You can, if you feel like that's wasteful, you can just either gift it to somebody else or a pantry, or finish it up and then buy something else. Just start educating yourself on the products that you're putting in your pantry and in your body, and swapping them out. Just start swapping them out. That was the small things that I started in the beginning. So nutrition was the first thing that was huge for me. And then it sort of just snowballed from there, and it continues to snowball every day. There's things that I change. So
yeah, that's good stuff. Okay. So if I'm correct, I believe you are a gluten-free girl. Yes.
Yes. That's one of the things that, I did when it wasn't cool. Right. So after having my gallbladder out, you're going to feel better. Everything's going to be great. Okay. No, it was not great. I did not feel better. To some point, I guess, I suppose. I mean, it was a bit of an emergency situation, like I said. So I guess probably did feel a little bit better.
Sure.
But I continued to have stomach issues, and those were surrounding certain foods. So I really went to doctors, and I got frustrated, and I said, no more. And so I just started researching myself, and I literally kept a notebook and paper. I carried it with me everywhere, and I began writing down symptoms after food.
Oh,
That's how I
awesome.
did it. I did not go to get an EGD. I did not get diagnosed that way. My mom actually does have celiac, so I probably do. I don't have that label on it, but I did really notice that surrounding those type of foods, it would really be pretty painful, and not for a day or two. Like, it would set me into this huge flare of inflammation, gut discomfort, bloating, joint pain. I mean, just a whole gamut of things. And so it just wasn't worth it to me. So I just started cutting it out. And I can actually tell you, I remember the first time I decided to go to the grocery store and shop this way. And it was going to be a change for my whole family, because I knew that I couldn't cook one way, and I wasn't going to do that. That's like too labor intensive.
For
I'm going to
sure.
cook one way, how it is going to be. But I remember calling my husband from the grocery store crying, because I'd been there about an hour. And I literally was reading every label, because, you guys, this was before gluten-free was labeled on everything.
Yep.
Yeah, this was like a long time ago. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to eat anything.
I know.
So really,
It feels
that's
scary.
my-
Well, especially
Yeah.
'cause you're not going to eat the same foods that you have been eating, because they all have gluten. So then it's like,
Yeah.
what to do?
I know. So it really, it was just getting back to the basics, getting back to origin. We talk about this all the time. So it was shopping the perimeter of the store, and no more convenience. It took away a lot of convenience, but you need to be okay with that too.
Yeah.
Getting back to the basics and making your own tomato sauce, making your own stuff. And that's okay. And it's actually better than buying the jars, you know?
So much better. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. All massive changes. So how long did it take you to kind of fall into a good rhythm with that then?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit tenacious, so it didn't take me long.
You? What?
I knew that, listen, I had my little fit in the store. I had my little breakdown, but I got to work really fast, and I still have recipe books in my pantry from back in the day. I just got to work, and I started figuring it out.
Mhm.
And by the way, I love that book. I downloaded I think it's Figure Outable.
Yes. Everything
Anything.
is figure outable.
There you go. And I mean, listen, it's not going to be easy. It's not easy, but you're learning. And those things that I learned early on, and I decided to learn them fast because I didn't want to take any time.
Yeah.
They're still with me today. I still make my own stuff. Not all the
Yay.
time. There are some conveniences, of course, but I mean, I make my own spaghetti sauce. I make my own whatever. I make a lot of salad dressings. I make, so it's like,
It's awesome. Yeah, just
Yeah.
a lovely little background with Jen and I. We stayed together in March in Southern California in a house
Mhm.
with, I don't know, what were there, eight or nine women in it.
Mhm.
And Jen and I were the cooks. She was the chef and I was the sous chef. And I think everybody loved it.
I think they did. It was good.
Yeah. I'm
Made
pretty
some
sure
good-
we're nominated for
Oh,
October too. So,
good.
I love, yeah, it's good stuff. So absolutely. It is, in the beginning, it can seem daunting. However,
Mhm.
it is, you can absolutely do this, right? You can choose this way of living. And then now let's talk about how you feel. How do you feel after that change?
Yeah, I mean, I have felt so good. Once I changed my diet, I felt so good for a number of years until I didn't. Because our health journey, we know, does not go like this.
Right?
like
It does not.
It kind of goes like this.
Uh-huh.
And that can be a bit frustrating, but you are learning as you go. And I did get to feel better for several years, until probably about, which we can talk about, but this was probably about 3 years ago,
Okay.
when I hit with another kind of issue.
Mhm.
And I think, like I told you, God is my guide. So, and he knows me better than anybody in the whole wide world. And I am a bit stubborn, and I will go. And when it's time for me to slow down, he just says, hey, time for you to slow down. And sometimes it looks like what it looks like 3 years ago. And that's what it was.
Yeah.
Time to make changes, Jen. Like, okay, let's
Right.
go.
Absolutely. Do you want to dive into that? Do you want
Sure,
to
sure,
tell
yeah.
us what occurred?
Yeah, so I started to notice that I was having more inflammation that had gone away, had been gone for a long time. So I started to notice more inflammation. I just all these kind of like issues were starting to show up again. Some
Sure.
of them were a little bit different, and some of them were similar.
Okay.
So I started my research again.
Mhm.
And one of those things that I figured out was I had implants. I chose to do that at a young age, young 30s. And, you know, no regrets here. I mean, I made an adult decision, but it was time to maybe look into breast implant illness. I really talked to a lot of educated people, read a lot of material, and I realized that these probably needed to come out. So that's where 3 years ago I, you know, began that journey of kind of like diving down that rabbit hole of silicone and what that does to your body and how your bodies can kind of fight that and
For
what
sure.
those symptoms look like, you know. And then I was dealing with a lot of stress, and that was from some family situations that were going on. And we know that stress can really wreak havoc on the body too.
Mhm.
So I did have explant surgery, and when recovering from that with the stress that I was dealing with, I developed or found out that I had parasite infection. So it was like bam, bam, one
Right.
right
Yeah.
after the other.
One on top of the other, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
man, that would take you down.
It will, absolutely. And I feel like, and so I know, at least from just different things that I've read, like honestly, most of us do have parasites.
Yeah.
Like
We do.
it's we don't want to talk about it, but it really is something. And then you can have a flare up of some kind, and then boom, you're hit with a major ordeal out of it, for sure.
Yeah.
Is that
And
correct?
I think
Did I
that's
say that
important.
right?
No, yeah, like it's important for people to understand. Yeah, most Americans, let's just say it, all of us have parasites. Nobody wants to admit it, but yes, we all do. It's not in
Sure.
Mexico, it's not in third world country, it's
Right.
right
It's
here.
not killing us. It's not, typically we don't even know it. It's
Typically, we don't even know it, and they live among us, and a lot of times we need them for balance. Some
sure.
of them,
Yeah.
okay. It's part of our homeostasis. But when your body's under stress or something's a bit off balance,
Mhm.
they can take hold.
Sure.
And that's where it becomes a problem if the balance is off.
Sure.
And that's where I was. And
Yeah.
it was pretty bad. And so
Yeah.
at that point, you have to take notice and you have to take care of the situation and get your body back to homeostasis. Because that's what your body thrives there in homeostasis.
Absolutely. Yes. So, okay. So we had an explant, had your breast implants removed because, once again, just like you said, we make decisions whenever we maybe are younger and not in the same place that we are today. And so then it becomes apparent that, oh, wait a minute, my body could be rejecting these things, right? Or saying, hey, wait, no, we do not want a foreign body in our bodies. The only reason I can speak on that is because I've also had an explant. So I'm like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But just for everybody listening, I think it would be beneficial. What were some of your symptoms to that? And how did you feel after those were removed?
Yeah, no. So inflammation. I had a lot of inflammation in my eyes, inflammation in my joints, um, joint pain, brain fog. I did have stomach issues, but like I said, that could have been from the parasites kind of like trying to flare up because my body was under stress from fighting off all. I think it's important to note too, it's not like some of these things just how do I say it? It's like a myriad of problems can like come to a point where your body's like, okay, I am really done. Like you have done enough. Like
Yeah.
I have been fighting this long enough and I'm done. Like your toxic load can get so high to here where now what maybe wasn't a problem, maybe, okay, we were okay with the implants being in there, but once your body hits a toxic level, it's like, okay, we got to change something.
Mhm.
And so that's where those symptoms were getting really elevated, I think, because there was a lot of things that needed to change still that I had not changed. And that's where, and we can talk about, that's where I started going really deep and saying, okay, no longer can it just be nutrition. It now needs to be my environment.
Yeah.
I really changed so many things because my toxic load was like here. It was
Right.
done.
Right. And that just happens, like that's part of life, right? We are so everything that we our nutrition, what we intake, even what we consume as far as consumers, right? There's so many things that increase that toxic load for us now.
Oh,
So
true.
I love the transition that you just made. So let's go on and go right on with it, right? How did you start realizing, okay, wait, I'm done, right? You know, I'm sure part of that was all of the sickness, like you just didn't feel good whatsoever. But then like, okay, wait, there's some other things that can be handled here, right? Like I can start removing plastics from my house. I can start changing the chemicals that are coming into my house and start detoxing from that. So I would love for you to jump into that now.
Yeah, no, that's good. One of the things you asked about the symptoms, one of the things that I was dealing with too was just my headaches had come back. I had a lot of headaches. So one of the things that I eliminated from my home first, and to be honest, I don't know why it was hard for me, but it was kind of hard for me, was my plugins. I had them literally, you guys, I had them on every wall. I
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
my house to smell so good when people walked in, and it gave me such joy. And I looked into, that was one of the very first things I looked into, and it hurt me. I don't know why. Like my heart was like, oh, as I'm throwing them away, I'm like, oh, that was a lot of money. But I knew that they needed to go. They're huge endocrine disruptors. The fragrance is very toxic. You're breathing it into your lungs. It's going into your body, and they were on every wall.
Yeah.
So they had to go. So that was one of the very first things I did. And then as I'm like researching and diving down, this rabbit hole, I'm like, more things need to go also. And so
yeah,
it's been
tell us
fun.
what was it? Where did you start going? What things did you start eliminating? How did you, and
Yeah.
then how did you replace it too? Right.
Yeah. So I started using a few apps we talked about earlier, Karen. So I started looking into EUG. If you guys don't have the app, you can download that. EUG, there's one called Yuka, Yuka. Maybe we can link those later. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
There's one, Think Dirty. These are 3 apps that you guys can use to help you. Okay. It's a guide. Ultimately you need to be looking at the labels and making sure that what needs to be in your home and not. But it's a good nice guide to use for toxic and also swaps that you can do. But some of the other things that I knew needed to go was deodorant. I need to look at my deodorant. I need to look at anything that included any kind of fragrance. I needed to look at those things, because if it says fragrance, it is toxic, guys. So deodorant was one huge. And also just to keep in mind, and I can go into a few other things that I've changed, which is hand soap, laundry detergent. I make a lot of my own things. Karen knows because she's got the recipes. Anything that was going on my skin, hairspray, anything, you guys, all of those products for my body and for my home were looked at. I used to be a huge Febreze room fragrance person. Like I told you, the plugins, and I had the sprays too, like those all had to go. And what I swapped those out with, we'll talk about in just a second, because it has to do with where we're probably going.
For sure.
But one thing you want to keep in mind when you're using these apps, like I said, it's a guide. And also companies that maybe you say you find something that you like, a deodorant or a hand soap that you like, that pairs well, that you find on the app that says, okay, this is safe. And they usually give them like a number, like 1 through 3, and you want to stick with the low. Think low tox, low number.
Okay.
Remember, some of these companies that are great, but when they're great and they're being bought by several people, sometimes they get bought out by large companies that aren't so great. So
Absolutely.
just keep that in mind, that a lot of the products that I used to use in the beginning, I don't use anymore because I know that they got bought out and they are now owned by larger companies that now put toxic ingredients in them. So you have to always be coming back and reviewing.
Sure. That makes sense. You have to stay on top of your game.
Yeah, true. So I thought that was worth mentioning because
yeah, no, it's absolutely worth mentioning, because
yes,
just because it is what it is doesn't mean it is what it is.
right. Or that it's going to stay that way. And I just had to switch my deodorant again because, you know, they got bought out. So
Yeah, I know. I'm curious, what brand do you use now?
Sand and Stone, Salt and Stone. Sorry, Salt and
Okay.
Stone.
Yep. I feel like I've tried that one. I don't know. Anyway, yay. Thank you for the recommendation.
But you can make your own too.
I know, right? Yay. Okay, so let's talk about this now, because this is exactly where we're heading.
Mhm.
How did you start making your own stuff, right? Like how are you using it? What are you putting in it to make it the best?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So one of the most recent changes that I made was water. And it's really interesting. And I know that most people will be very interested to hear that water is not just water. And I actually, for years, was drinking bottled water, and I even would get heartburn after I drank bottled water. And if I drank tap water, I would get heartburn. And I remember asking some people, some educated people, and even physicians, like, why am I getting heartburn after? I mean, I literally eat so healthy and so clean. I eat the perimeter. I don't eat a lot of processed food. I'm drinking water and I'm getting heartburn. Why? What's going on? And so I was researching water, diving deep into water, like what's going on. And what I found out is that bottled water is in a bottle, which is plastic, and those microplastics actually leach into the water, and that makes the water acidic. So when you are drinking bottled water, it stands to reason that if you get heartburn, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it does.
So fast forward to kind of changing my water. I changed to a Berkey. I changed to I tried all these different things out. And then I found the medical water machine that you and I both have now. And that's when I feel like things really started to roll. Like, okay, we're on to something here. I have made all these changes. So I've set up the foundation, and now I've found like the ultimate thing to kind of push me forward to
the perfect
a non-tox home.
Yeah. Perfect vehicle to get you there.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. So whenever you made that change to the medical grade living water, what did you notice an impact immediately?
I would love to tell you yes. And some people do notice an impact immediately, but remember, I told you that my body was in this like highly stressed state. My toxic load had gotten to here. And even though I had made all these changes, I still needed to correct and get back to balance in here. And that did take a couple of months to kind of get all the way back to balance. Now, I did notice right away that when I drank the water, I did not have heartburn any longer with drinking the water. But our water is a antioxidant, so it detoxes the body. So what I experienced the first few weeks, month to a month and a half, was a detox process that my body was going through, which was huge for me and needed to happen. So I was noticing things and things were happening and changing because my body was getting back to balance. And that's not always super comfortable, but it did need to happen. So after probably a couple of months, I was like, okay, here we are. And I always say, like, the water brought me back to life, because I truly believe that I could see the life come back into my body. I mean, before the water, I had dark circles under my eyes. I was emaciated. Yes, emaciated. I could hardly eat anything. That's where my life had gotten to with the parasitic infection. I mean, I think I told you, Karen, I was eating like 600 calories a day. I'm a nutrition coach, for goodness sakes. Like, I know that's not good.
Right. Yeah. It was the only thing your body could tolerate.
Yeah. So the water literally brought me back to life. It started to heal inside out, and really started to notice huge changes after, just 2 months. My hair started to grow back. My skin started to look better. Color was coming back. My lab levels were looking better. I mean, just everything was kind of like coming back. I always use the word, it's like coming back to balance.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, I was like just using the machine for water. I was just drinking the water. But then I was like, once I started to get back to balance and feeling better, I'm like, what else does this machine do?
Right?
Can
Like, huh, let me figure this
I-
out.
Yeah. And that's when
Yeah.
I started use it in other ways, which I'm happy to talk about too.
Yeah, absolutely. We have about 5 minutes left.
Cool.
So I would love to jump into just for a quick minute. You do use this machine, correct? To do all of your holistic laundry and the ways you clean your house. And it allows you to do that. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Why don't
Absolutely.
you jump into that really quick?
Sure. Yeah. So the medical grade or the medical water machine makes hypochlorous acid, which I use to spray my countertops. I clean my toilets with. So any cleaning, any surface that needs to be cleaned, I use that. I also carry it in my purse for hand sanitizer. I gargle with it if I have sore throat. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? The 11.5 emulsifying water I use for laundry soap. I do put either a few drops of essential oil or something like that in my laundry, but that's what I clean my laundry with. And I've been doing that for a year and a half, saving tons of money. I have a steam mop that I use the emulsifying water in. No chemicals. If I want it a little bit cleaner, I might put a couple drops of lavender or thieves in there, but
Sure.
that's what I clean my floors with. I clean my couch with the 2.5. I mean, it just goes on and on. I make my own hand soap. I do my own dishwashing tabs.
Yeah.
And it may sound overwhelming to you guys, but just start small.
Right.
That's it. Just start small.
Because like you said, this has gone over 3 years for you, right?
Yeah.
We start with nutrition, we start in that space, start with water, right? Make that change. That's a massive change. And then slowly start deciding, okay, well, I don't need all these cleaners underneath my sink. I don't need the laundry detergent because we have this beautiful machine that, turns my house green all by itself. And then, like you said, we can add essential oils. We can add things that, that help give us a little bit of that scent. I am just like you. I love things to smell good. So yeah, I do. I love those essential oils in that perspective. So, yeah, I think that's a big deal. Okay, Jenn, I would love for you to give us just your last thoughts, right? If somebody is thinking about starting this process, just realizing that, what I'm doing might not be working for me. Just leave them with a last thought on how to get started, how to have patience, and what would you recommend for anybody?
Yeah, I would say just listen to your intuition. And like I said before, start small. Start with something easy is what I would say. Start with something easy. For me, it was nutrition in the beginning. Had I known about the water, it would have been the water. Yeah. I mean, changing your water is so simple. So that's what I would say. Just start with something small and something simple. And as you feel confident and comfortable there, build on that. Try to just take a deep breath if you feel overwhelmed and take a step back and go. You do not have to win it all in one day. Yeah. It's just, like I said, it's a snowball effect. So when you feel confident in one area, you can move on to the next area to tackle. So that's what I would say. Start small.
I love it. I love it. And then also too, we've touched on this a few times today. So we keep saying, listen to your intuition, like listen to your body. And somebody could be sitting there going, what do you mean? What for you, whenever you say that you listen to your intuition, what do you do? Like, do you get quiet? Do you actually, try to listen to those little thoughts and go, which ones resonate with me right now? Like, what's your process? For really finding time to listen to your body? What do you do?
Karen, it is such a good question. And I have such a good answer, and I will try to make it super quick. Because we did not really get to touch on this really, but one of the biggest things, you guys, that you could do for your mind so that it can be quiet is turn off your TV.
Yeah.
Quiet the
Your
noise.
detox.
I mean, that is part of what I did to detox. I turned off my TV. It's hardly ever on. And once you do that, you allow space for thoughts and time to actually think and process, and time for God to talk to you too, right? So a lot of meditation, a lot of time just with my own thoughts. And for a lot of people that may be uncomfortable in the beginning because there's so many, but just take some deep breaths. So for me, like when I go in the car, I don't turn the radio on. When I'm sitting in the morning having my quiet time, the TV is not on. I'm telling you, it may be uncomfortable in the beginning, but once you start practicing that and become more comfortable with that, you will start hearing those thoughts come in. And that's where the intuition's coming from. If that makes sense, Karen, does that kind of answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. That was where I was going with that.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Because, I think people are just like, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean to you? And so definitely, I'm the same way. For me, it is honestly sitting in the quiet for 5 minutes a day will start to develop that intuition for you, right? Even just 5 minutes, right? We can do 5 minutes, right? We're talking about bite size. So 5 minutes a day of sitting quietly, tune into your breath, right? Just breathe and notice that inhale and that exhale. And that will start calming you down so that smaller voice can come in, because that's usually the one we need to listen to.
Yeah. And if you need a reminder, guys, just look behind Karen at that scripture. Be still and know that I'm God. Like that says it all right there as we wrap it up, right?
It does.
I mean, get comfortable being still, because when you are still, that's when he talks to you. He has a small whisper of a voice, and that's where you're going to hear what you need to hear. And so that's where people need to that's a simple start, right? That's getting comfortable being still. It's okay.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love you so much, Jenn. You are a wealth of information. I love you. I love your knowledge. Thank you for sharing some of that with us today.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been amazing. I love you back so much.
Yay. 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 Okay, everybody. So if you have any questions for Jenn, for myself, you can always reach out. We're both on Instagram, and I will tag those in the video too, so that you can know how to reach out. So I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.